Hey Miracles, welcome to Sentimas Day 3. Today's gonna be really fun because today is all about your favorite couple, Adrian and Marinette, aka Adrianette. Ever since I created this podcast, I've had a lot of people asking me to make videos about Adrianette or like the love square in general because I think quite frankly that's what most people care about, but you know the thing is I don't. I'm so sorry. I know my whole personality used to be Adrianette, but I really just don't care that much anymore. Which is actually kind of funny because I feel like everyone cares about the love square. They don't care about anything else. So they've kind of been hating on season 6 because it's focusing on other things than just the love square. Me personally though, I kind of prefer the other stuff over Adrianette. And so I feel like because we finally got the other stuff versus just the love square this season, I've kind of been a lot more disinterested in the love square. I'm so sorry about that. But on top of that, I feel like the concept of them getting together was way more fun than them being together. I loved being able to like hyper analyze everything and be like, oh my gosh, did you see that millisecond where he like slightly glanced at Marinette? Oh my god, he's so in love. That was kind of my favorite thing, which is why season 4 and the beginning of season 5 was so peak. But also on top of that, I feel like the love square is something that everyone likes, so it's something that a lot of people understand, plus it's like the focal point of the show, so there's not really any confusion, there's not really much I need to talk about unless it's like some kind of theory, which is why I have really yet to actually talk about them. However, today is the one exception. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll probably make many videos talking about the love square as like we go along. I think there are still things to talk about and still things to describe in terms of the love square, but for the most part we're not really going to be talking about it. Anyway, but the reason we are here today is actually to discuss the Adrianette breakup. Specifically what I had written on my notes for this episode, like for the topic that I planned, is why Adrianette became canon / why they won't break up. First things first, I want to say that I used to not think that Adrianette would break up, and I still particularly don't, but I fear that the closer we get, like the more doubt I have. Narratively, I feel like I don't have any doubt in terms of Adrianette breaking up, because them breaking up to me narratively does not make sense, and that's kind of what I want to talk about in this video. But at the end of the day, literally anything could happen. Along with like the debate of Adrianette breaking up, there's also kind of this debate of like it should have been Ladynoir, or why wasn't it Ladynoir, or Adrianette needs to break up because Ladynoir needs to get together. I have so many problems with that to begin with, but that's kind of the thing that I want to talk about first, like why exactly Adrianette was made canon over Ladynoir despite Ladynoir being more popular, and then we can kind of dive into like why I don't think they'll break up. So starting off, I kind of want to talk about something that I first brought up, I think in the Mark episode, or no, I think it was in the Philogamy episode, and then I brought it back up again in the Mark episode. But right around the time that The Ruler came out, Thomas did an interview, and I'm pretty sure they were kind of like asking about the state of Mark and Nathaniel's relationship, like are they friends, are they dating, what is it? And he was basically like, no, they're not really dating. It's like more of a situationship, which there haven't really been any new developments since then. But we did see them kiss in the end card of Sleeping Siren, so I'm pretty sure at least something happened and they're not a situationship anymore for sure. But anyway, so because he did that interview where he was kind of talking about the state of their relationship, he was also talking about ships in Miraculous in general, like why they're created, how they're created, and like which characters they choose to pair up and why they choose to pair them up. Okay, so the exact part of the article said, as he himself explained, the creator of Miraculous and his team imagine couples who have everything to be together and who seem obvious. And then there's a quote of Thomas that says, we just try to see what seems natural for the characters to do or not to do. So at a certain point, when we have characters who get together and others who don't get together, it's not done by chance, it's just logical. So what this tells us is that everything they do is purely logic based, where it kind of has to fit with the story and like what they're going for, and I guess like the timeline of events. I think couples in Miraculous are very crucial and they're put together for a very specific reason. I do think that the reason why Adrian and Marinette were put together, when they were put together and how they put together, is because there's something that is going to happen that Adrian and Marinette kind of need to be dating in order for it to happen. Like whatever bigger storyline they're going for kind of needs Adrianette to be together, and that's why they are together. And so if we kind of take that and put that into like a Ladynoir versus Adrianette lens, the reason why Adrianette was picked over Ladynoir is because it's the one that's most logical. I think I actually have a story that I posted on Instagram about this once. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, I found it. Okay, so I was doing a Q&A thing on Instagram Instagram, and somebody asked me, do you think they should bring back Ladynoir? And this is what I said. Not unless it's in the context of a reveal. In my opinion, it is extremely bad writing if they do make Adrianette break up to bring back Ladynoir. Knowing everything we know about Ladynoir, their relationship, and the show in general, it doesn't make sense for Ladynoir to be back. They'd be contradicting themselves left and right, and the evolution of Ladynoir in seasons 4 and 5 would just be thrown out the window. I spelled that wrong. Not a great idea. Not to mention, the writers deliberately chose to make Adrianette canon. Ladynoir is the focal point of the show. The ship is more beloved, so why not make it canon? Well, that's because Ladynoir cannot happen without a reveal. It doesn't make sense for them to date, nor has it ever. The writers are very smart with the ships and the choices they make. As Thomas said, they only ever make ships canon if it is logical and makes sense. So knowing that info, we can deduce that Ladynoir is not logical. It doesn't make any sense. And if that's the exact reason why they deliberately chose to not make Ladynoir canon, why would they randomly decide to put Ladynoir together? Doesn't make sense. So essentially what I'm saying is, like, clearly the Adrianette versus Ladynoir debate was a very, like, intentional and a logical thing. It wasn't like, I think Adrianette should be together. I kind of like them more. I kind of like them more than Ladynoir. Like, there are deliberate decisions that led to Adrianette being together. In a lot of ways, it was just more logical for Adrianette to be the one to get together apart from Ladynoir. And I actually do agree with that for, like, two big reasons. The first reason is that it's like basically just how this show goes and just how the show works. We know that the beginning of the episode is just the characters, just the human characters. No abilities, no superpowers, just them going to school or doing something together, hanging out, going through some problem, going on dates, all of the things, okay? Problems kind of stem from just everyday normal interactions. Like, typically, half of the episode is just the characters going through something, interacting, having fun, doing whatever, okay? And then the last half of the episode, or like, it's usually like about a half or maybe even sometimes a fourth of the episode, is them just defeating villains. Basically what I mean is that it feels as though the heroes are only ever used to defeat villains. They're never really the focal point. Any kind of character arc, any kind of evolution of literally anything basically is just between the characters, right? A lot of the lore, a lot of the plot lines. It's very like just character driven, not really hero driven. They tend to focus on the characters as people, as humans, rather than just the heroes. It's not a really huge arc that they focus on. And so if like the main point of the story, the main, drive for the story is just the characters in themselves, not as heroes, then having the relationships only be within the heroes doesn't make sense. And I mean, that's kind of apparent because are any of the heroes actually together? No. Now, there are heroes that know each other's secret identities. Example being Mark-Aniel, Philogame. So like, yeah, there are some heroes that are couples, but their relationship stemmed from their just normal human side. I keep saying human side, but like them being heroes isn't like not human, but I guess their powers come from not human. I don't know how else to explain it, okay? I'm just gonna keep saying human side versus hero side, even though they are both humans. Anyways, Argos and Ryuko didn't get together and then end up together as Philogame. Mark-Aniel didn't get together as Caprikid and... Why am I drawing a blank? What is his name? Is it Rooster Bolt? Hold up. Hold up. Mark, hero name. Okay. It is Rooster Bolt. Okay, it is Rooster Bolt. Caprikid and Rooster Bolt didn't get together, and then Mark-Aniel became a couple, right? Kind of all of the couples focus on just them apart from their hero sides. And once again, I think that's very deliberate because the heroes were only ever used to defeat villains. That's where their arc comes in. I mean, yes, they are very, very important because it's like heroes versus villains. A lot of the plot is, driven from the fact that Marinette is Ladybug, Adrian is Cat Noir, and all of these characters are heroes, but that's not really like the focal point. Once again, a lot of the development and stuff just comes from them just being themselves. Marinette being Marinette, Adrian being Adrian. What I mean is, like, if Ladynoir was together, you wouldn't really see them very often because once again, the whole focal point of a lot of the things that are going on are just the characters themselves, not as heroes, the things that are going on in their everyday life. And so if that's the case, I feel like having Ladynoir be together wouldn't be very satisfying because you wouldn't really see them very often. The second thing that I think is also really important is that it's kind of like this Ladynoir dynamic that we saw in season 4 and season 5, and that's something that I mentioned in the Instagram story. In my opinion, if you actually sit down and you genuinely watch season 4 and 5, like the beginning of 5, and you really think about what they're saying and what they're doing and what they're portraying with these seasons, I think that you would come to the conclusion that basically season 4 and the beginning of season 5 was just one long list of why Ladynoir shouldn't and could not happen. Like, to me, it feels like they kind of gave Ladynoir potential at first, first, but it just didn't work out, and that's ultimately why Adrianette ended up together. I think Ladynoir being together, aside from a reveal, you end up running into way too many problems. I mean, heck, Cat Noir being in love with Ladybug made him run into so many different problems, and I really feel like it all just kind of comes down to your secret identity. I mean, when you first like someone and you're first getting to know somebody, I think being kind of a little reserved from them and not knowing everything about them doesn't really matter, but as you get closer to them and you start learning about them more, and like the longer you actually start dating them, the more you want to get to know them. Prior to now, I feel like when Cat Noir was first falling in love with Ladybug, that distance was kind of okay because he's just, you know, kind of getting to know her, but the harder he fell in love with her, the more he needed, not even wanted, but needed to know her fully, which is why he kept wanting for them to reveal. That's why he kept getting mad when she wasn't really, you know, paying attention to him or talking to him. That it's like the deeper you get, the more you crave, I guess is a good way of putting it. Just knowing her wasn't enough. He needed to know her. He needed to know who was behind the mask. I guess my main point is like, you're always going to want to know more and need to know more. I do think that dating and having those masks is not a good thing. And like, I feel like the mask, obviously it's like a physical thing, but I feel like in a lot of ways it can sometimes represent a more emotional thing. Kind of being reserved and distant from someone is never good in a relationship. And that's why I think that even if Ladynoir did end up together, I think it would end so super quickly because it would be hard. They can't be Ladybug and Cat Noir all of the time. They can't spend a lot of time with each other. They would rarely get to see each other. They would rarely get to talk to each other. And I think constantly transforming just to see each other is also not a good thing. It's also just like not really sustainable. Like there's physical distance, but also emotional distance, and you have to keep your identities secret from each other. And so you can't really get to know them on a deeper level. And I'm sorry, but if you think that you can have a relationship that will actually be sustainable and would actually last if things are like that, then I think you might run into real big problems with your relationship. And I know that a lot of people in the fandom are younger because obviously Miraculous is a kid show. So I don't blame anybody for not being able to see that, but I also think that's kind of why it's important to talk about it, because you are younger and these are things that you should be paying attention to and you should be able to understand as you get older. These relationships and these dynamics are so incredibly important to understand from a young age, because if you don't really understand these things, I think you can run into really big issues. Which actually kind of brings me to my other point that I wanted to make, which kind of goes along the lines of like why they won't break up, okay? So we've kind of talked about the first bit, like why Adrianette was made canon. Ladynoir's not really sustainable. They wouldn't be able to get to know each other. The identities would be a huge problem. It would either lead to them breaking up, or it would either lead to a reveal that would ultimately probably end the world, as we've seen before. And then also with just like the structure of the show, most of the show is focused on just the characters outside of their hero forms, and then the heroes are just used for battle. And so having a relationship within characters that are heroes just seems weird, because like you would never really get to talk about their relationship, or it would never be seen a lot. Plus it could also just, you know, mess with them defeating villains because they're too busy flirting. They're too busy flirting with each other. They're not getting anything done. Anyways, so yeah, there's all that. That's the reason why Adrianette was made canon. Moving on to why they won't break up. I feel like it all genuinely just comes down to the fact that this is a kid show. First off, I want to say breakups are not always a bad thing. I don't think that showing two characters getting together and staying together is always the most important thing to do, because I think breakups can happen, but I feel like it's kind of the way in which they happen that makes for like a sustainable thing. Like, okay, here's the thing. Obviously, a lot of us are older. Some of us are older, and so we kind of prefer like the drama-filled, crazy plotline story. You know, a lot of people would kind of like Adrianette breaking up and them hating each other, and then Ladynoir dating, and then this and that and this and that, because it's very engaging, it's very interesting for an older audience. But you guys have to remember, as much as you say Miraculous isn't a kid show, it is a kid show. It is targeted for kids. There are kids that are watching this. And one thing about kid shows is they have to be very important for, or not have to be, but they are very important for development. You kind of have to really consider the way you're portraying things and the things that you are portraying. Girl, my Utah accent. I have horrible pronunciation skills. Oh my gosh. Anyway, but everything you do And the way you do everything is also really, really important and really crucial. And I think focusing on these dynamics is also something that's really, really important, because human connection, these relationships, these friendships are something that is very important. It's very important to understand what healthy ones are and what they look like, because media and film and movies and such are very crucial to basically everything. Everything to like how you live your life, how you see things, how you understand things, maybe even how educated you are. The things that you can comprehend can come from this stuff. And in a lot of ways, the way you see relationships and friendships being portrayed can be very, very crucial. And I think that's why it's so important to portray relationships as something very, very healthy, because that is what the kids are looking at, you know? If you have a toxic relationship or dynamic that you're portraying in a kid show, well, the kid is going to see that and being like, oh yeah, that's how relationships work. There's also this other side of it of like some people grow up in toxic situations. They're only ever used to having families or parents that aren't in a good relationship, that are toxic, and like that is their vision of love. That is their vision of, this is just how parents are. Mom and daddy fight all the time, they argue, they hate each other, and that's just how the world works. That's just how love is. And so to have these shows shown to these kids where you see these healthy relationships and you see these healthy dynamics, I think in a way it kind of makes them understand like, oh, this is what a relationship is. This is how it should look. Like, they do love each other, and it's wrong, or not wrong, but it's not normal for couples to fight like that, to hate each other. Anyway, I think that the way that these relationships are portrayed and how they play out are extremely important. In a show that's for, you know, young adults or adults, it doesn't particularly matter, because a lot of young adults and teenagers, like, they do understand those healthy dynamics. Not all of them, but I think some people have a greater understanding of what a real relationship looks like. And so if you have these kind of weird, slightly toxic, like really dramatized relationships, I feel like it's really easy to be like, yeah, this is just for TV. But for a kid, it kind of means the world to them, because this is how they learn. That's why you have kid shows being like, do you know what this is? Can you find this? Shows for kids are used not really necessarily for entertainment, but for developmental purposes, education purposes. You know, there's kind of always a bigger story that's being taught or learned in these shows, because kids need to learn those things. They need to see those things. And so the way you portray things is something that is very important for kid shows. The way the characters are shown, the dynamics that they have, the relationships they have. It's very crucial to portray them in a very good light and in a very healthy way. You know, you need to have these boundaries set. It's good to show these things and portray these good dynamics. I feel like I've said the word portray a million different times. I'm so sorry. But it's very important to show these things to these kids, because it's very important for them to understand what a good, like, real relationship is, looks like, and should be. These are the things that they should grow up understanding. They should understand how relationships work. And I genuinely do think that portraying these relationships as a good, healthy thing is something that Miraculous really strives for, especially for like what we've seen in season 6 with not just Adrianette, but all of the relationships. And you know, Adrianette, they can be a little bit not good. Like, not like a bad relationship, but I feel like they can be a little codependent, and their relationship may not always be where it should be. But the thing is a lot of these episodes are kind of like Adrian and Marinette kind of defying that and realizing that it's not very healthy, that this dynamic is not very healthy and it's not very good for them. I think a good example of that would be the newest episode that came out of Vampagami, where they're being like so codependent. They literally saw each other yesterday, probably spent the whole night talking, and then woke up, video called. Marinette like left for like 30 minutes so that way she could go to his house and then see him again. And it's like, oh my gosh, I miss you so much. And then she was like doing things that she didn't particularly want to or like, because she's like, oh my gosh, Adrian isn't gonna like me if I don't do these things. Clearly that's not a very healthy dynamic. But the thing is at the end of the episode they were kind of realizing, oh, we don't have to do everything together. Just because I like something doesn't mean you have to like it, and we don't have to spend every waking second with each other. Like, we can go at that distance and just be okay with it. And I think that's what's so important, is like they're not only making sure to help portray them as like a good relationship, but they're also kind of making sure to take those unhealthy dynamics and traits and show to the audience that this isn't a very good thing, and kind of showing them like fixing that so that way they can have a healthy relationship. And I feel like another side of that is, once again, a lot of people want this like highly dramatized version of Adrianette where they're kind of toxic for each other and they're constantly breaking up and there's so much drama, and then Adrian hates Marinette and Marinette hates Adrian. You see it all the time, right? People say Adrianette needs to break up, like they want Adrian to break up with Marinette because he needs to hate her or he shouldn't like her anymore. Oh my gosh, which is crazy because they literally want Adrianette to break up because Marinette lied to him, but then in the same sentence they're like, Marinette is so toxic to Adrian, he needs to dump her. And then he needs to go be with Ladybug because apparently they're not the same person. Listen, Marinette lying to Adrian means Ladybug's also lying to him, which means Ladybug's also lying to Cat Noir. It's kind of funny because people need to like downplay Adrianette and make them look so toxic and so bad in order to uplift Ladynoir. And it's like, honey, the exact same things you're saying about Adrianette can be said for Ladynoir. Just saying, like, people say they need to break up because they're so toxic, honey. They are the same gosh dang people. If Adrianette's toxic, so is Ladynoir. Anyway, point aside, moral of the story is people just really want them to break up, and in a way that's like, once again, really dramatized, and this like needs to be this big blowout thing. But once again, kind of going back to that healthy dynamic and like how those things need to be portrayed in kid shows, breakups should not be like that, especially with the love square being endgame. It should not be this big blowout thing where they hate each other because it makes their dynamic so unhealthy. You know, them dating each other again is going to be like, why are we getting back together? Like, y'all are not meant to be endgame. In my opinion, Adrianette needs to be portrayed in a way that they can work through all of their issues healthfully. If there's a problem, they can get to the bottom of it and fix it. Their relationship needs to defy that of a toxic relationship. And don't get me wrong, I do think that breakups can be healthy. I do think that sometimes it is necessary, and breaking up with someone doesn't automatically make your relationship unhealthy, but I feel like it's kind of the way in which they do break up. And like I said, I'm not like totally against a breakup if it happens in a way that's tasteful, in a way that is, it's like, this needs to end because we both feel this thing. It doesn't need to be a huge blowout, screaming, crying moment, super angry. It kind of needs to be a thing of like, okay, this really isn't working out for us right now, and I think we both need to have our space. I think that is a mature, once again, tasteful breakup that I think would be good for kids to be able to digest, because if, like I said, if there is a breakup, they need to understand that breakups can be healthy and it needs to be done in a way that is healthy. Shock value in a show can be really good and really fun to watch, but for a kid show, that's not what you want. We're not here for the drama, we're here for the learning. Kids watching shows is kind of how their reality is shaped. They learned so much from shows, and so to have shows that really do show those healthy dynamics and portray what a real friendship is and what a real relationship is and how it should go, and portraying that relationship as one that defies typical relationships where they actually work on things and get through them. Because okay, here's the thing, I feel like a lot of people, if anything tiny goes wrong in a relationship, especially nowadays with social media, the instant thing is just, oh, we need to break up. That is not healthy, okay? That's not how it should go. If there's something wrong in the relationship, what you should do is be able to talk and communicate and get through it. I think that if anything were to happen to Adrianette, I feel like that's what it would be. I don't think they would break up. I think they would go through a rough patch, but ultimately work things out together and figure things out and come to the conclusion that they don't need to break up. They just need to work through their issues and then move on. Not everything has to be a breakup, and not everything should be a breakup. And I think to have a show that just really shows Adrianette always getting through these issues without breaking up, without splitting, would be really, really nice, because once again, it's teaching kids that these are issues that you should work through, and you shouldn't just call it quits every 2 seconds if something goes wrong. You should have to work through it and fight for it. Anyway, like I said, anything is possible, anything could happen, and I think that it is possible that Adrianette could break up. I highly doubt it, and this is kind of why. And just for the record, even if they did break up, I don't think that Ladynoir would or should ever get together, because once again, Adrian and Marinette are the same people, so if Ladynoir were to get together, they'd probably still run into the exact same problems. If you say Adrianette is toxic and you're also rooting for Ladynoir, I hope you know that it's also actually toxic. I think if they broke up, they would need to like take a break from everything. Also, like I mentioned, with Ladynoir, you would run into so many problems, a lot more problems than Adrianette, and I don't think that their relationship relationship would last even if they did get together. And like I said, season 4 and 5, it was kind of just one big long list of why Ladynoir doesn't work and why it would never work. Ladynoir, there was just so many problems, and I feel like they definitely did highlight all of those problems so that way we would kind of root more for Adrianette, but I guess that just flew over everyone's head and they still want Ladynoir over Adrianette. So yeah, that was my take on that. This is a video I have been wanting to make for a really long time. But anyway, with all that being said, that is the end of episode 3 of Sentimas, which I think this technically concludes our first week of Sentimas, which is crazy. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys again for day 4.